I first reviewed the Audi Q4 e-tron when it first came to market around 2 years ago, and I asked the big question, is it a real Audi? And the answer to that question was yes. But in the past 2 years, there have been a lot of newcomers to the electric car market in this segment. And today's question is, how does this stack up to the competition after a few years on the market? When it comes to the exterior styling, I think this has held up exceptionally well. It looks even better now after being on the market for a few years. I think it's aged much better than the original big Audi e-tron. The front end is still very attractive. It looks kind of concept car-ish. And I also think the rear end is more successful than on the big Audi e-tron, which is now called the Q8 e-tron. I like that it has a very SUV type shape compared to the Volkswagen ID.4 and the Skoda Enyaq that it is very closely related to. Overall, I really like the exterior design of this, and if you option it in the right color with the right wheels, it looks exceptionally well. When it comes to the interior, I still have a lot of the same complaints I had when I originally reviewed this car 2 years ago, and it has to do with material qualities and a lot of the fit and finish, which really isn't up to par with other products from Audi. Hard touch plastics high up in the cabin, kind of cheap feeling soft touch plastics, and a lot of big gaps in just, the trim pieces around the doors, around the center console. Again, a lot of hard touch plastics. Really isn't up to quality with what I am used to from Audi, having owned a lot of Audis in the past. And at the time I reviewed this car originally 2 years ago, I actually dailied an Audi e-tron 55. And at the time, those two cars were a lot closer priced than they are today. Since then, that car has gotten a facelift, now called the Q8. And there's a bigger gap in pricing between these two cars. So, the discrepancy in interior quality really makes a lot more sense today. But if you're looking at these two cars, that is absolutely something to consider. Actually, I rode in an Audi e-tron 55 yesterday right after driving this car, and the difference in quality is still the same as I remember it being from a few years ago. But with that being said, you're still getting Audi switchgear. So all the switches, all the controls, the window switches, the door handles, just the way the door closes, everything you interact and touch with, the climate control here, everything feels really high quality. And this car has one of the best interior ergonomics of any car out there. I really do appreciate the setup. We're going to go more into detail into that in a different segment of this video. But physical buttons, the way everything is set up, really is a masterclass in how to do interior ergonomics. These seats look really nice. They're actually quite comfortable, but on longer trips, the seat cushion can be a little bit hard. Me and a friend of mine who drove this car yesterday for a few hours, we both complained, but if you're not too sensitive about that, I don't think it's going to be an issue. But if you are, you may want to look at the normal seats, which actually has a softer seat cushion. The Q4 e-tron isn't the biggest car when it comes to exterior dimensions. It's actually quite a bit shorter than something like a Tesla Model Y, but you're not going to notice that here in the back seat because there is plenty of room. Look at this knee room here. That is a lot. Also, the footwells are big. I can easily slide my feet below the front seat. This seat is set to my driving position. I like to sit a bit low. I have plenty of room here, and I'm 5'10" or 178 centimeters. I have about this much headroom. Even though this car is equipped with the panoramic sunroof, it's not a very big unit, but it's one of the units that actually opens, slides backwards like that. Those tend to eat up more headroom. And this is fine for 4 adults, even tall adults. You're going to be very comfortable here. And also, the bench is quite a bit off the floor, so you have nice under thigh support. You have a large armrest here with cup holders. My only complaint about the rear seats, if you're going to travel with 3 adults abreast, I think it's going to be tighter, and I think maybe something like a Tesla Model Y is better. And also quality, like the front cabin, isn't the best, but you actually have large door bins here. You have also like a large cup holder here, bins and everything. Yeah, this is a nice place to travel if you're going to carry 2 adults in the rear. Because the Q4 E-Tron is more of a traditionally shaped SUV, I think it's actually quite practical. You have this large trunk opening here. You also have 520 liters of storage capacity. And when you fold down the rear seats, you have this large cargo room back here that you can carry a lot of stuff. There is no trunk though, and also you can have this in a less practical version called the Sportback. Maybe it looks a little bit better, a little bit more aerodynamic, giving you a little bit more range, but it's going to be less practical. Before we jump into the driver ergonomics and I tell you guys why I think this is a masterclass in ergonomics when it comes to the front cabin, I just want to give a huge thanks to today's video sponsor, Zaptec, with their Zaptec Go home charger. The Zaptec Go is a cool, stylish, and elegant home charger that can charge up to 22 kilowatts on AC charging. It will work with every electric car on the market, even at Tesla. And if you're thinking, hey Chris, should I buy this charger? Is it really good? Aren't you sponsored by them? Yes, I am. They are sponsoring today's video. So again, thanks to Zaptec. It actually won Best in Test in the Norwegian Automobile Association NOF test of home chargers in 2022. So independent testing show that is actually the best charger you can go out and buy. So if you want to buy one, there will be a link in the description box down below. Scroll down to your country, click the link and purchase one from there. To start the Q4 E-Tron, you just sit in the driver's seat with the key on your person and then you put your foot on the brake. The car turns on. Simple as that, really easy, and then you're going to get a message here. We're just going to press OK. So let's start off with this steering wheel. So first off, I'm not a fan of the shape. I've never liked this squircle steering wheel. I think this is the only car that Audi have it in. It's kind of irritating. And in Norway, there's no option for any other steering wheel. I know in other markets, this is actually the optional steering wheel. You have a round one as standard, but in Norway, this is the standard steering wheel. But with that being said, we're going to take a dive into the button layout and how the buttons work. So at first glance, it kind of looks like these are capacitive buttons like you do have on a Volkswagen ID3 or ID4, but thankfully they are not. They're actually touch sensitive on the panel here on the left and on the right, but you have to actually click the buttons to be able to operate them. And that is really nice. There's a nice click there. Not my absolutely favorite Audi layout. So in the e-tron GT and also the Q8 e-tron, these are actually physically separated buttons, but this is the next best thing. So here on the screen there, you can scroll up and down with this pad here. You can also just press if you want to do that. So you have an option which is really nice. In other Audis, this is a scroll wheel. I prefer that, but this is really good actually. It works really nicely. And then you can also toggle between the different screens like this. And I mean, there's so much customizability. There's so much information to scroll in between. You can change the view like this. Yeah, so you can just have it at any way you want. I mean, this system came out like almost 10 years ago and it still looks modern. It still looks great. And one of the best, you know, gauge clusters out there. I think this is quite small, actually. I think it's maybe like 9 or 10 inches in this car. In Audi, other Audis, it is bigger, but it works fine here. It's quite actually deep recessed into the dashboard, which is really interesting. So you have a lot of controls here for your screen there. And then on the right side, you have all of your, you know, audio controls. You also have your heated steering wheel, voice commands, and then you also have a button here you can program. You have your phone controls. Again, this, you know, you scroll up and down if you want to turn up and down the volume, but you can also press it. And then you can skip forwards and backwards. Mercedes, I'm looking at you. You have even another row of button stacks, but you have managed to fit a skip forward button, yet a skip backwards button. So this is really nice. I mean, this is perfect. How this works is really, really good. There's nothing annoying about this, though the Audis which have physical buttons and a scroll wheel here are a little bit better. You have your stocks here on your left and on your right, normal stocks. You also have paddles here for brake regen, and then you have your cruise control down here, which in my opinion is the best operation of cruise control. It's super simple. Pull to activate, push to deactivate, up for up in speed, down for down in speed. You have your distance here, and then you can set it. And then you have your adaptive cruise control, auto steer. You can turn that on and off by just pressing this. And then you can see there your lane keep assist is on. That, you know, defaults to being on every time you sit in the car. And, you know, most often I'm super annoyed about that because you have to go into some menu, press a button into a screen. But in this car, you just hold this for a few seconds and then it goes off. Why doesn't every car do this? It's so simple. And then when I just want to toggle between having auto steer on and off, you just press this once. Look at that. It's on and then it's off. I mean, this setup here is by far the best. It's so easy to use. It's so intuitive. There's no bullshit here. There's no like, we're going to remove buttons because it's going to look good. They did something different with the Q4 with this panel here, which is a combination of touch and push, but they didn't take away any functionality. So applause to you, Audi. You also have traditional, you know, window switches here, mirrors, door locks, you have your trunk release, and then you have the center console here where you have the gear selector, on and off park. You also have, you know, your volume here, which also I do prefer in other Audis where it's actually a volume knob, but this works really, really nicely. Drive select modes here. And then look at this, guys. This hopefully will be making a comeback in more cars. A physical HVAC control layout. Again, if you're not new here, you know I had an Audi E-Tron GT almost 2 years ago. This is the same layout. It's super easy to use. It just works flawlessly. I mean, this car is so easy to use. I love interacting with it and having these clicky buttons, which are always there. Like heated seats, you want to do your automatic recirculation, you want to do your front defroster, rear defroster, auto sync. It's all so easily laid out and looks elegant. And then you have the infotainment system, which also is, I mean, this is old. This infotainment system came out in like 2017 with the current generation Audi A6, but it's still one of the best. Firstly, it just looks great. This screen, I think it's like 10.8 or 12 inches. It's big enough. You don't need a bigger screen because you're not going to do any bullshit like climate control. You're not going to do your gear selector. You're not going to do your volume. You're not going to do your drive modes here. You have dedicated buttons for that. So that's why it's simple. So here you have your home. You have, you know, your audio sources here, your CarPlay. You have your map. Yeah, we're going to do that so we don't get a copyright strike. You have your map. You have route planning and stuff like this. This is so easy to use. I've used this route planning with my Audi e-tron GT when I drove my car to Germany and back again, so check out those videos. But it's super easy, super simple and easy to use. Like settings, radio, media, car. I mean, like every system, there is some getting used to, and maybe this isn't the best infotainment system. Maybe like the Polestar 3 has a better infotainment system. Maybe even a Tesla has a better infotainment system. But the combination of this not being the absolute best, but everything else being so darn good is the reason why I think this is a masterclass in how you do interior ergonomics. I've been driving a lot of different cars lately. Nissan Ariya. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make any video or upload any videos on that car because my mic, you know, failed out. So all of the audio was like butchered from all of those videos. But that car was annoying to use. I've been driving, you know, the Ioniq 6. That car has a lot of annoyances. Neo ET7, a lot of things that annoy me. This car doesn't have a single thing that annoys me. It's just a pleasure and a joy to use, and this is why I think Audi have the best driver ergonomics combination of infotainment system. And I think you have to look at everything as a single ecosystem because you as a driver are going to be interacting with this. This isn't separate to this or to this. You have to, you know, rate it as one cohesive system, and this is the best there is out there. Now let's take this car out on the road and I'm going to tell you what it is like to drive. So first off, getting out of this location I usually film is a little bit tight. There's a tight left and then a tight right. There's some stairs here that you guys don't see, and there's a wall here. And this car is actually quite compact in its size. And you know, when I made a comparison between this and the big e-tron a few years ago, I said just go buy the big e-tron. Because it is actually better value if you can spend a little bit more money, and I still think that is the case. But a lot of people were like, but I don't want a big car. I bought the Q4 because I want a smaller and more compact car, and those arguments are completely valid. I absolutely get that. And if you want a smaller car just because it's easier to drive, it's easier to park, maybe you live in a city where they have a lot of tight streets, Absolutely. I totally agree with that, and I really do like the size of this, and it's actually quite roomy on the inside. The front cabin is quite roomy, visibility is great, and you actually sit a little bit higher, more SUV like than you do in something like the ID4, ID5, Enyaq, or Enyaq Coupe from Skoda, which are its corporate cousins. All of these cars are really closely related, but I think the Audi actually gives you the best driving experience. So first off, this car has the dynamic package, which gives it adaptive dampers. It's also on 20-inch wheels, so you know, not the best wheel size for comfort. You can actually have 21s, but with that being said, this is one of the best riding and absolutely best damped cars I've ever driven. It's super impressive. You know, I drove the Neo ET7. I had that for a week, and some reviewers have said that, oh, it drives like a German car. It doesn't. This is what a German car drives like. This is so much more refined in the suspension tuning, in the way it's dampened, the way it is controlled. I mean, there's no competition. This is what the Germans do best. And again, I'm going to use the word masterclass because I have never driven a car that's on traditional suspension at like this price point, being kind of like a cheaper car that rides this good. It's super sophisticated. I mean, it's very firm, like super controlled. You feel like all the controls are tight, and even this Audi steering, which kind of lets down a little bit of the driving experience because Audi kind of have a numb steering. In this car, it doesn't, because the body control is superb. You go over a bump, there's one motion, and you just feel the car just really just dampening all of the motions. It's like this at 50 kilometers an hour or at 120 kilometers an hour on the motorway. The first day I drove this car back from my, you know, my 120 kilometers range test, it was super impressive. I'm like, damn, this car is really well damped. And just to give you guys a little bit of perspective, I daily a Porsche Taycan Cross Turismo. Porsche are known for the masters in suspension tuning, and the fact that I get into this car and I'm like, this is impressive how this is damped, how this goes down the road, really is testament to the job the Audi engineers have done with this car. And this is a road I usually go down to test cars to see how unsettled their suspension is. And when I drove something like the Mustang Mach-E GT on the magnetic ride suspension, it bounced, it didn't settle. A Tesla on this road, like a Model Y, it never settles. It's just choppy. Here, it's so smooth. I mean, really good suspensions. What they do is that they shave off that first layer of motion on refinement and harshness. And then from that level, they dampen the ride. So you don't, it's like riding on a carpet, and then when there's a big bump, it's just really well dampened. It's super impressive the way this drives. It's not the most quiet. I've talked about this for, I think actually the ID4 and the Enyaq have better sound insulation against road noise, wind noise also, but the way this drives, like the steering is actually quite, like I you know, gave this kind of crap for being Audi steering. Again, I daily a Porsche. It's nothing near that, but compared to, like, I don't know, the ET7 from Neo, which I've been driving recently, compared to Hyundais and Kias, this is miles better. It actually feels kind of natural. It doesn't feel too overboosted, but it's kind of, you know, numb and lifeless. But for being this type of vehicle, it's fine. It's fine. So this being the 50 Quattro, this has dual electric motors, 299 horsepower, does 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 6.2 seconds. Usable battery capacity, 76.6 kilowatt hours, and this will do 10 to 80% in around 35 minutes with a peak charging speed of 135 kilowatts. WLTP rating of the range is 478 kilometers. In my 120 kilometers range test, this performed actually not very good on these 20-inch wheels. These are aftermarket wheels, but they come as a dealer installed option for the Norwegian company that imports these. So these are like a dealer option for winter wheels. This is on winter wheels. So I think if you get the 19s, the aero wheels, you're gonna get more range out of this car, because I've done a lot of testing with this ID4 ENIAC, and when you get the correct wheels and tire combination, you're actually going to get pretty decent range. But on this specific combination, I wasn't impressed. Temperatures were okay, around 10 degrees Celsius. Also conditions were great, so I was just expecting more. Go see that video if you want to find out. But yeah, so you know, this car doesn't have the most impressive numbers. We're going to get to that in the conclusion, because I think this is a great car. But if you have a very specific electric car use, this may just not fit that bill. Okay, so what are the negatives about the Q4 e-tron? Well, interior quality, fit and finish, not the best range, and also starting price is quite decent and, you know, competitive, but once you start piling in options, it's going to get really expensive really quickly. This car is 800,000 kroners spec like this, and it starts from like 535,000 kroners for about 53,000 euros. I would go for a 45, a little bit less power, and I wouldn't option too many options, putting the car at around 700,000 kroners or 70,000 euros. But still, an equivalently equipped Ioniq 5 EV6 is going to be quite a bit cheaper. A Model Y is going to be a lot cheaper. But this gives you a lot of things that those cars don't give you. Exterior styling, great. Interior styling is actually, I really like the way this interior looks. Ergonomics in here, flawless, Masterclass, nothing even comes close. So on a daily basis, driving and living with this car with the ride quality, with this car with the dynamic package, I would go for that, the adaptive dampers. It's the best car at this price point in this segment to live with and drive on a daily basis. But if you need an electric car, we're going to go on a lot of long trips, you know, you need more range, you need faster charging. I think getting something like a Kia EV6 is going to give you more range with the right tire and wheel combination, and also faster charging, and also going to be cheaper. Also, Tesla Model Y is going to get you more range, faster charging. But living with an electric car on a daily basis, commuting back and forth to work, picking up your kids at school or at daycare, going to the shops, and then taking that occasional trip, it doesn't really matter if you're going to charge for 20 minutes or 40 minutes when you're doing it, like, I don't know, a few times a year. So I think this is my favorite car to drive and to live with at this price point in this class. I can overlook, you know, the interior quality issues. I can overlook maybe not getting a car with all the options, but I would get the adaptive dampers. I'd also get the Sonos sound system, which is pretty decent. These seats, not mandatory, but they look great. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please drop me a thumbs up down below. And for more car content, as always, please subscribe. See you guys later and goodbye.